Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the SKNIS Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.
I'm Ian Richards, welcoming you to InFocus, a weekly program where we take a closer look at what's happening within and across the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, your government. This week, we are joined by members of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force High Command. Together, we reflect on the successes of 2024, explore strategies to strengthen law and order in 2025, and address the urgent issue of frequent traffic accidents and measures being taken to reduce them. Our guests today are Commissioner of Police James Sutton, Deputy Commissioner of Police Cromwell Henry, and Assistant Commissioner of Police Travis Rogers. Stay tuned for an in-depth conversation on public safety and policing in our communities. It's InFocus, your government, your business. Thanks for staying with us, and let me just add as we begin the conversation that a little later we'll be taking calls from you, the public, who are listening or watching us live on ZIZ Radio and television, so we would invite you at the appropriate time to do so, and that would be a bit later in our program. But now we begin our conversation with the members of the High Command here, as you mentioned, Commissioner Sutton, Deputy Commissioner Henry, and ACP Rogers. Commissioner, we'll start with you, and for those who are looking at us live on television or on social media, they would have seen some images where it did a basic recap of what would have taken place in 2024 in terms of activities for the police department. Now, how would you describe, and of course I want to open it for anyone else to jump in as well, define 2024 from a law enforcement perspective?
Okay, good afternoon, Ian, and good afternoon, our listening audience. I would describe 2024 as a very productive year for the police force for a number of reasons. One, we made a number of significant arrests in some major crime, serious crime, to curb and prevent the furtherance of these offenses. Two, we strengthened our community policing initiative by going out in the community and interacting and engaging members of our community to rebuild the trust and confidence in the police, because it is important for the police to work in partnership with our community. We also want to thank the government as well to enable us to facilitate this process by adding a number or providing a number of vehicles to assist in our mobility, and also to have some amendment with regards to our legislation. For example, the judge-only trial. That is a significant step by the government in regards to crime and security. So far, we have had one conviction with regard to that piece of legislation. We also want to thank the government for making the amendment with regard to the witness interference legislation. So these are some of the things that we would be able to say have been positive. Apart from crime and security, we look at the hosting of a number of events during 2024. And all of these events were done incident-free, based on the fact that we placed a number of security measures in place. The police cannot work by ourselves, and we need the support of the community to work with us as we enter 2025. So I would say that 2024 was a productive year for the police. Having said that, we had challenges. One of the challenges we would have encountered with the juvenile offenders, there is no proper place to house these persons, and they continue to offend the law in a number of ways. That is something that we will have to work on going into 2025 to ensure that the Harris's Home Rehabilitation Center is up and running. 2, we are seeing a number of mentally challenged persons moving around the city who are committing a number of offense and are somewhat need to be brought into the frame under some control. Many of the times when we do take these persons into custody, there is no place to house these persons. And that is something that we will have to address along with the government. So there are a number of things that we are working on, including for the safety and security of all our citizens and residents.
Well, I would concur with the Commissioner. I think he gave a good overview of the year for the police. And so I would conclude it in one word. It was a successful year for us from a security standpoint. As the Commissioner said, we were able to successfully police all the major activities, international activities. We had CPL, we had international cricket, West Indies cricket, we had Carnival, we had music festival. These are major events which require significant resources and planning, security planning, in order to be successful, and we were able to successfully police those. But one of the things that, for me, that stands out most is us meeting our objective to reduce crime. We've seen from the statistics that we have so far, we haven't released statistics yet, but we are seeing a 10 to 11% reduction in crime in 2024 over 2023. Bearing in mind that in 2023, we would have had a reduction in crime over 2022. So we continue to have a downward trajectory in terms of the reported crime. And so for us, that is the greatest achievement. And so I would sum up the year as a successful one for us, based on that fact alone.
Yeah, I too would like the record show that I support what our commissioner would have outlined, and I would share the same sentiments with Deputy that we had a successful, as commissioner, assistant responsible for operations, lots of these events would have fallen under my purview, and we work assiduously to ensure that the citizens and residents of St. Kitts are safe, as well as our visitors. So I will just culminate by just saying we had a really successful year.
And I imagine,
if I may jump in, Ian, for a second bite, we did not do it alone. We had the support of our sister agencies, the Defense Force, even Customs and Prison. We work closely with these agencies to achieve all of our objectives. We do not pretend that we have all the answers and we can do things by ourselves. And the community, we depend on the community a lot for our successes. And we had the support of the community in large part. Despite the criticisms we get from them, we see the criticisms as good for us, because when they criticize us, we look at the criticisms and try to improve for the next time. So we appreciate the criticisms, as long as they are constructive, as long as they are not malicious. We like the criticisms and we use them to improve. So these criticisms have helped us along the way in achieving our successes.
And to sum it up, it tells you when we work as a unit, how much we can achieve. Because it's important for the police, the community, and all stakeholders to work hand in hand for the safety and security of all in St. Kitts. Because we, along with many initiatives and measures that we put out, we also have a constant flow of information with regard to sharing of our information with the public through our PRO. So that is critical as well.
right. And so I want to touch on a commission, and of course you would have mentioned it in terms of the international events, and ACP Rogers, I'll come to you with that one in terms of being able to accommodate so many persons, because of course Carnival is seen as one of the most successful ones ever. Of course there's some things that someone may underestimate. I think Coney Island, the amusement park that was here for Independence, that really saw hundreds and hundreds of persons turn out, and all of this was done in a safe environment.
Yes, okay. What measures we employ to deal with that and the other international events? Well, we partnered not just with Defense Force and Customs, but with private security. We recognize that there is a need to have more human resource, in light that we doesn't have all the answer when it comes to human resources. So each event we employed private security, and they did lots of the work in terms of searches at the gates, and we're just here to reinforce and to enforce the necessary laws that relates to the event. And that proved to us to be very successful. You spoke of Coney Island, that was one. And let's skip to Carnival, the parade, the last lap, Juve. Those were, you would have seen the private security within the bands, holding the ropes, enclosing the troop personnel, and then we just give them their support. Defense Force, again, DCP would have mentioned it, but I'd just like to reiterate the point that they are our closest partner, and this proved to be very successful. So at this juncture, I would want to thank them wholeheartedly for their contribution, because at the end, like I said, we're ensuring that our people are safe who return home and those who are living here.
Well,
just to reinforce what ACP Rogers have just said, even though we reach out for partnership, we always apply that with a plan, a security plan. So at least persons in different agencies will know what their role is and their responsibility, because it's important to maximize your human resource when it comes to security.
Of course, now the DCP will mention statistics, and we're going to get to that just a bit later. But I first want to ask about some of the key successes, and you may have run through some of them when you gave your opening, but what would you say are some of the key successes that the force really enjoyed in 2024, besides the fall in crime rate that the Deputy mentioned? We'll talk about that later in terms of statistics, but any other key successes that you'd care to mention?
Oh, you have to look at the Coast 46. We start that persons who are trained, who are able to join the workforce as such. That because the police continue to be asked to do more with less. So we try to maximize as much as we can. We also establish partnership with a number of international agencies in our effort to fight crime and to make the public safe. We maximize technology as well. We enhance our phase 2 of our camera system, that is in the countryside, so able for us to have real-time information. And that is something that is ongoing. We would have partnered with other aid persons. For example, we have reached out to persons like the Rush University, how could we partner with them, and things of that nature. So it's an ongoing process as we're moving forward. Things that we have laid the foundation to build to go for into 2025.
So the partnership with Ross, that would be in relation to resources or
resources, both human resources and services as well. So because Ross has a major input here in the Federation, and we have to have that establishment as well. For example, when it comes to traffic, how could we improve the traffic along that corridor, just like around the entire St. Kitts? Because safety is important. Recently we would have had a number of road fatalities, and we would have quite obviously have to put measures in place, other measures in place to address this the upsurge in road fatalities and accidents. So it's important for us to have a holistic approach as we move forward.
Deputy, as you mentioned, the crime statistics, what do the figures indicate? You mentioned that there's an 11% decrease. Yes. Tell us a bit more. Delve into, and of course, of particular concern to most persons are major crimes, and that would include the homicides, the wounding incidents, robberies. What can you tell us?
Well, yes, the homicides, that is of particular concern to us, of course, to most people, and we've seen a reduction. We made a concerted effort to ensure that we had a lower number this year than the previous year. And we achieved that. Small as it is, we were able to achieve a 10% reduction in homicides compared to last year. So we've had 28 homicides last year, and 30 compared to 31 the year before.
Yeah.
And of that 28, 25 of them were firearm related. So we see that we have a firearm problem, and so we continue to address that. In terms of firearm related offenses, we've had a significant reduction in those. 39% reduction in firearm related offenses, 31 in 2023, and compared to 19 in 2024. So we've had significant reductions in most of the other areas. The bodily harm, woundings, we have 11% reduction in those, 161 in 2023, 144 in 2024. We look at break-ins, we had a 1% reduction in that, small, but it's a reduction nonetheless. However, we have a 6% increase in sexual crimes, 68 in 2023, and 72 in 2024. A difference of 4 crimes, which is for us is still high, still too high. Robberies, we have an 8% increase in those, 3 crimes more than the year before, 39 in 2023, 42 2024. SKNIS, we have a 12% reduction in those. Drug possession, a 5% reduction. As I mentioned, firearm, 39% reduction. Malicious damage, 30% reduction. So most of the categories we've had reductions, which brings us to a overall total of 11% reduction in 2024 over 2023.
Right, so you just mentioned that there were 28 homicides last year. Now, of course, the police issued a press release, as you spoke about, and the commissioner mentioned, in terms of keeping the public informed in terms of what's happening, that indicated that there was a resolution rate of 57%,
Yes.
that essentially 16 of the homicides were solved. Talk to us about the significance of such and what may have come into place to help to improve the statistics there.
Well, we rely a lot on technology. A lot of us crimes are solved using forensics. We have our forensics department that meticulously do crime scene investigations, and we collect samples, collect evidence, and we use labs in the UK and in the US and different parts of the Caribbean to help aid in our investigations. And so a number of those crimes were solved using forensics. That almost guarantee convictions, and so we are confident that when we make an arrest, that 16%, that 57% increase also contributed to the reduction, because detection aids in prevention, helps prevention. If a person knows that he has a high chance of being caught after he commits a crime, he or she, yes, then he's less likely to try. If he knows that he has a high chance of getting away with it, he's more likely to do it. And so we believe that detection is a good form of prevention. And so we deliberately set out to detect these crimes in order to prevent further crimes. So currently we have over 25 persons who are in prison awaiting trial. For last year alone, don't talk about the previous years. For last year alone, we have over 25 persons who are in prison awaiting trial for murder. And so that in itself assisted in keeping the numbers low. And we expect them to continue to go down, coupled with the other interventions that the Ministry of National Security and the government on the whole is engaged in.
Right.
Just to support what the DCP has said, apart from technology or intelligence gathering capabilities were extended to assist, and that has contributed significantly as well. We also, as I said, support what you have just said. The trust with regard to the community has gained a lot of footing well, especially when we made some significant arrests, persons began to come forward to assist in other investigation. So as we move into 2025, the likelihood that we may be able to solve more cases. For 2024, is 17 homicides we solved, 1 from the year before. So 16 for 2024, but 1 for 2023. Mm-hmm. So it's important that the process continues in that direction.
And mention was made of the efforts by the Ministry of National Security to, of course, to enhance law enforcement and to really ensure that there's citizen security. Now, an important part of that would have been the launch of a 90-day campaign against violence and crime. Tell us, what role did the police play in this campaign?
Well, we provided much support to that committee. We move around the various communities with them, just to reassure the public, provide security, because persons are always concerned gathering and especially to discuss crime, becoming a victim of crime while you gather to discuss crime. So we ensure that we had presence, not only for security purposes, but to provide support to the committee. So whatever activities the committee is engaged in, we provide whatever support they needed in whatever way to ensure the success of their activities.
Okay, because that as well form part of our education of the public. By going out there, we use the opportunity to educate and have the support of stakeholders, because you realize, as you may realize, that the 90-day campaign encompasses all persons. It doesn't matter what political persuasion came from, what businesses they came from, and that was important because fighting crime requires a holistic approach to address the concerns, because previously persons look at the police as the sole custodians of crime, but crime affects everyone, and if it's going to affect everyone, I think everyone should have a part to play. Our community policing also played a critical role, because during those interaction engagement, our community police representatives would have been party to, along with members of the High Command. That's how serious we took this initiative, because we look at crime, we were looking at the root causes of crime. How could we address the root causes of crime and not the semantics of crime, but the root causes of crime? So that is what the whole partnership was about, addressing the root causes of crime.
It goes back to that famous quote by Desmond Tutu of South Africa, that you don't just pull people out of the river, you go further up and find out why they're falling in. Certainly very important. And just quickly before we take our first break, because we're kind of up against the clock, but it's something that you mentioned, Commissioner, that I do have to ask, as the Deputy would have touched on having the increased solving in crime. Judge-only trials is something that you mentioned that has been something that is very helpful. Talk to us a bit about that.
Okay, previously we had the trial would have been conducted by judge and jury. The judge would have been the judge of the facts of the law, while the jury would have been judge of the facts. But now, because of the seriousness of some major crime and the witness intimidation and jury intimidation, we made recommendation to the government to have this legislation put in place for the judge-only trial, where the judge will be the judge of the facts and of the law. So by having that, we're able to address serious crime, as the name implies, serious.
And Deputy, there is, of course, it's still based on law. It's factual. There's no sort of bias based on the judge, because everything is based on the law and the evidence presented.
Nothing has changed. The defendant's right, or the accused person's right, has not deteriorated in any way by having a judge alone. All his full complement of rights are still intact. The judge would just be the judge of the facts and the law, as opposed to just being the judge of the law in a jury trial. In a jury trial, the jury is the judge of the facts, and the judge is judge of the law. In a judge-only trial, the judge is both judge of law and facts. So the prisoner's rights, the accused's rights are still intact, and all the remedies that he has is still available to him, even after the trial. He can appeal, he can go all the way to the Privy Council, and everything is still available to him.
Right, and of course that would help to bring a quicker sense of justice to some of the family members when persons are convicted. Some of them are found innocent, of course, because
Yes,
of course
exactly.
it's still up to the interpretation.
The prosecution has the burden of proving their case.
That's right.
So that hasn't changed.
Okay, so we're going to take our first break, and then when we get back, we're going to speak a bit about traffic accidents and what the police is doing to help to ensure road safety and ensure that the motorists and pedestrians are safe. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more In Focus.
If you haven't done it as yet, please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info.
Welcome back to In Focus. We continue our conversation with members of the High Command of the Royal St. Christopher and the Nevis Police Force. And as mentioned, of course, traffic-related accidents has been something that the public has been very concerned about. And so let's shift our attention there, gentlemen, and mention, of course, the more spectacular ones, unfortunately, that resulted in fatalities. And of course, there would have been one in the vicinity of F.T. Williams Highway. That is where two persons would have lost their lives, and then just days later, it was followed by another fatal crash in the vicinity of Brimstone Hill. Now, while we understand that, of course, that there is a court matter and investigations are taking place, and we wouldn't want to ask anything that would be confidential or would impact the investigation or the subsequent trial, but has it been determined what caused the accidents and the process that we move from there after that?
Well, looking at the severity of the damage to the vehicles in those accidents, one can only conclude that the main factor is speed. The faster you go, if there's an impact, the faster you're traveling, the more severe the damage to vehicles, and the more severe the injury, which could also result in death in the most extreme cases. And so in these cases, they were extreme, because the persons died. The injury were extreme because the persons died, and they die as a result of the severity of the impact. And so only speed would give you those extent of those type of damage that we've seen in these accidents. So, and in both cases, the roads where these accidents occur are in fairly good condition, very good condition, recently resurfaced. So it seems as though good road and a good vehicle equals speed. And that is what we're trying to discourage. We want persons to remain within the speed limit, regardless of the condition of the road. And
just to add, in support of what Mr. Henry has just said, road fatalities are very complex investigation most of the times. And because of the frequency of these accidents, I thought it necessary to sort the services of an accident reconstruction expert to assist these investigations. And that is what we are dealing with right now. Having received his report, we will then have a discussion with the DPP as to the way forward. So as the report comes in, we will have a discussion with the DPP as to the way forward. The charges are, whether or not he recommends charges to be preferred or things of that nature. Because we have to send a strong message to persons who are using the roads. Speed is not the answer, and it will never be the answer. But lives matters.
And ACP Rogers, it's not just a matter of speed in some cases, but unfortunately, as we mentioned, the roads, some of them have been resurfaced and they're good in other areas, but it seems to encourage reckless driving. I can't tell you how many times that I've been overtaken by vehicles, whether they're approaching an intersection because the road is wet. It does not seem to matter. There are some persons who feel that they're in a hurry and they need to get there, when quite frankly, and I'll give just a quick exercise. Actually, I was on my way to Frigate Bay once. I was going to Pizza Boys, and I was close to the roundabout there by ECCB, and there was a garbage truck approaching. And so I ended up behind the truck. When it was safe to do so, I overtook the vehicle. When I arrived at Pizza Boys, and I got out of the vehicle, the same garbage truck was passing me. That shows that even though I overtook the vehicle and I got there quicker, it really didn't make that much of a difference because the garbage truck practically arrived like at the same time I did. So talk to us a bit about, encouraging persons to be able to take their time and to drive with proper due care and attention, as the law states.
Okay, thank you for that question, Ian. We are making those attempts via our programs, whether it be our Facebook programs or our police interview, to plead to the general public that speed kills. And it could be you, it could be your family, it could be your friend. And when it hits home, it's very heartbreaking. But we can speak as much as we want, but persons still would make their decision, right? So what we are doing is trying our utmost best to be proactive in our approach, because traffic and road control and the regulations are part and parcel of our pillar, and we must enforce that if we're to be successful. So we're trying, and it's not a traffic department total responsibility. It's the responsibility of the force and supported by the public. So we're trying to be out there to carry out our vehicle checkpoints and try our utmost best to enforce the traffic laws. We know we get some pushback on that, but it's damn if you do and damn if you don't. So we have decided to enhance our effort for 2025 so that we could be more out there, because once they know you're out there and they're going to be caught to get a speeding ticket of 250, the chances would diminish. So those are some of the plans that we have going forward to address the issue of speeding. Of course, we would use our community policing effort to speak to our people. We would give out pamphlets or leaflets to the persons, and we have to be consistent and continuous in doing so until the message go across. So
what SPO has just highlighted are the 3 E's: educate, enforce, engage, and that is critical. We have to continue our education through our various campaigns. We have to enforce the laws as is mandated by law, and we have to engage our communities, and that is so important. And that is why we use our community policing team, the NIT, and in many cases the National Intervention Team, to help to spread the message as much as we can, because they have developed a great trust within the community. It is many persons would have heard about the job that Sergeant Odin has been doing with our young people. It speaks volume how we can tailor a program for our young youth, our young people, to move in a positive direction, because they have been criticized over a period of time for being the cause of many negatives, but they are positive coming out of the disengagement with the National Intervention Team.
All right, and we want to talk about the National Intervention Team, or NIT, a bit later. But I just wanted to come back to the traffic and ACP Rogers, because one of the criticisms, or one of the concerns that I personally have is that, of course, as you mentioned, there's vehicle checkpoints that will be set up, or officers, as they're waiting to see if there's anyone speeding, and you would see a WhatsApp going around. Police is by Ross. Police are on the F.T. Williams Highway. It undermines the operation.
yes, significantly. Okay, let me address that. Some people who are sending out these WhatsApp are only thinking, hey, look, we're going to get a ticket. That is the avoidance of getting a ticket, $100. But what they're not thinking is that who are traveling in those vehicles. Because it may be a traffic stop, but from traffic stop, we could have solvability of major crimes, because our criminals, for lack of a better word, are moving around in different vehicles, rental and private vehicle alike. And if you're going to alert the people that, hey, there's a traffic stop or vehicle checkpoint at point A or point B, then that criminal would get that information and be deterred, whether make a U-turn back around, and that same vehicle could have had firearms, which are the major contributor to our capital crime murders. So it affects us, and we want the public to know that it's not all the time we're just there for traffic offenses. We're there holistically to deal with other criminal offenses. There can be the movement of drug trafficking via point A to point B, movement of firearms and other contrabands. So we often get pushback when persons do these kind of things. And we want them to understand, because crime affects all of us. And if you're just looking at the narrow picture of just traffic offenses, it is not geared towards just traffic offenses. It's a holistic approach based on our laws.
And it could be considered an obstruction of police, to police duties. It is an obstruction because, as the ACP just said, you may have people who are carrying contrabands, illegal firearms. They might be drunk. They might be have something illegal, and you warning that person, you assist them in evading the police. So because you tell them police is under the bridge, for example, they turn down in Buckley's. So they have the truck full of firearms or stolen goods. And because you warn them, they gone down. And the police may be looking for him. They have been looking for that person.
That's right.
Because we expect that a truck should be coming this way with illegal goods. And you warn the truck and tell the truck, police down there, and so the truck evade. You assisted that person in evading the police, and that could amount to obstruction. And we see it happen. People go on the radio. There's some DJs on the radio announce police locations and tell the police down at this area, police in that area. They are assisting persons in evading the police, and it could amount to an obstruction. And
the victim, unfortunately, may be one of their own family members that they unwittingly put in danger.
I can give you an example. The police were conducting a VCP in Nevis, and while conducting the VCP, a person who was driving realized that he observed the VCP, tried to turn on because he was an unlicensed driver, and caused an accident with the divisional officers.
So I was coming to that point, Yes.
Okay. Which amounted to over $12,000 worth of damage. So I'm only showing you what, when we're doing out there, we really would like the public support in this initiative because it benefits all of us.
Right. And of course, one of the concerns as ACP Rogers, as you mentioned, that it's not a traffic department responsibility solely, but a police force department. And there's often been criticisms as well to that. There are a number of violations that take place, particularly at night.
Okay, yes.
There is, of course, light, and I can recall as well, traveling home one time and there was a vehicle behind me and they had blue lights on it. Now, I was concerned that it might have been a police vehicle. Not that I'm concerned that I will be pulled over because, of course, I always tell persons I have nothing to hide. That's why I live above the law, because I don't break the law. But I was concerned it was a police vehicle, and so I was seeking to give way for them to move forward or whatever. But it turns out it was actually a civilian vehicle. What is in place for the traffic department and the police to help to enforce nighttime violations that we often see?
Okay, thank you again for that question. And you're so correct. We get the complaints all the time about people, and I could go back to one lamp. Sometimes you're driving in a vehicle. In your vehicle, and you see one lamp coming towards you.
That's right.
And you're thinking it's a motorcycle.
That's right.
So you're probably not even as close as possible to the left. And then, whoosh, a car passes you. And you said if you were only a little to your right, you would have been hit by that vehicle. So what we have done, and we did an operation last week to gear towards night offenses. One headlamp, blue light, and those buses that are carrying the brighter red and green lights in their grill. And that operation yielded 81 traffic tickets, with the majority being like blue lights, one headlamp, lights that doesn't have to illuminate the number plate. And people may say it's simple, but let's say a police is driving behind you and they want to detect, because you're driving recklessly or dangerously, and they want to detect your number plate to run a check. If you don't have it illuminated by light, the police can't see it. All right, so we just want them to know that these offenses at night, they are dangerous. We will be out in our numbers. We will be out as frequent as we can. We know we have some challenges, but we have already started the year well, and we want the public to know that we're going to be consistent, and we're going to be driving those operations at night to curtail those offenses.
Are there plans to introduce breathalyzers, to introduce radar guns? We know that in the past that might have been done some, but I'm not sure if that takes place right now.
Okay, we have radar, but I'll DCP speak on the breathalyzer. He has been instrumental, I think we have, but he would elaborate on that. But the radar guns we do have, but we will like to have more, because like I said, it's a holistic approach, and we would want our Division B, Division C, and Division A be equipped with the, and not just traffic department and we're having 1 or 2 radars, but we would like to have as much as possible because that helps us to enforce and curtail the speed.
Well, speaking of radar, we do have the handheld radars, and we want to move away from handheld radars. We want to move now to photo radars, where rather than having an officer at the side of the road with a radar, we want to be able to mount a camera on a pole with a radar, and the camera would capture an image of the vehicle, capture the speed of the vehicle, send it back to our control center. We could download that information and find the offender and give them the ticket next day. So that is what we are moving to. I think you would have heard the AG mention that one of the recommendations that the Road Safety, Sustainable Road Safety Committee would have made, and we are moving towards that in terms of getting legislation that would allow us to issue tickets that was generated by a system. We already have a system in place that we are testing. It's working. We just want to get the legislation in place, and then we move into getting photo radars mounted at strategic places around the island that would capture image and speed. In terms of the breathalyzer, the legislation is there for that as well. In the past, we've had them, but for some reason their use have fallen off, and we have not ruled out bringing them back, reintroducing them. But in the meantime, what we are doing, once we suspect a person of driving under the influence, we would ask that person to accompany us to the hospital, have a doctor draw a sample of blood, and we test that blood to measure the amount of alcohol in the system. That has been working good for us, and so the law provides if the person refused, we could take certain actions still. So persons cannot drive drunk and get away. We've had a number of convictions. I think we had a recent conviction where a person was also disqualified as well as being fined for driving under the influence of alcohol. So we haven't ruled out breathalyzer, but we can enforce the drunk driving laws based on blood samples that we get from drivers.
And here's a plug for cameras in those traffic lights as well too, because it seems like there is confusion in terms of and deliberate confusion, because everyone knows. Yes. Everyone knows as a motorist, red means stop. If you're orange and you're approaching it, you slow down. You don't speed up, and plenty of times I've seen persons just completely ignore, and unfortunately pedestrians are doing it now too. Yeah. You look at some place by the convent, when you drive up that road, plenty of times I'm going to turn left to go to work, and the light turns green, and of course it's a sharp turn. So cars would emerge slow, and person seems to think that that's the time to try and rush across the road, even though it's not your time to walk. And it very dangerous.
It is an offense for pedestrians to cross the road when the light says to wait. Yeah. So I think we find it's $500.
Jaywalking.
Yes.
In support of what my two colleagues have said, we also need amendment to the legislation. For example, when it comes to ticketing, so where when the violators have been captured, the present legislation said the ticket must be entered, must be issued immediately. What we are seeking the amendment to say now is that the ticket can come in the mail. And that is important. Just like out in the international field, that is important. That is one of the things that we have taken on board with regards to our traffic enforcement legislation. You also suggested limit points on your license. So these are some of the amendments we are seeking as we move forward.
Right. And quickly, Deputy, because we're up against the clock, there's just about 50 minutes left in this program, and we do want to touch on the community policing initiative. But again, with traffic, and I appreciate that the police has a traffic program, but there's a lot of persons who do have concerns still. But in relation to, as the Commissioner mentioned, in terms of collaborating and communicating more with the government, and some of the recommendations that were made by the Sustainable Road Safety Project, talk to us a bit about how the recommendations that were made will help to improve overall road usage, and also what involvement the police might have had with that committee.
Well, first of all, the police is represented on the committee in the person of myself. The police representative on the committee. And what we do, we basically look at data, look at the problem, analyze the data, assess the problem, and come up with recommendations that would address the problem. So we trust that these recommendations that we are making, the sole intention is to address the problem, to reduce the number of accidents, to reduce the fatalities in particular. And so that is the whole objective of the recommendations. So we hope that these recommendations would do just that.
And of course, there's a new traffic department under construction over at Ponds Pasture. I imagine you're looking forward to that to help to enhance the police's
and
operational
enhance the
ability.
services. They have outgrown the present building. I was there this morning, and I could hardly get into the building because of the amount of persons inside there. It's a small space.
At St. Johnson.
St. Johnson, right. St. Johnson, yes. I could have hardly get in the building because it was literally full with people who are doing business. We had over 2,000 vehicles registered last year coming on the road for the first time. We have a cab boat that's come here almost every month with at least 200 vehicles. So the number of vehicles are growing daily, and the transactions, persons, when you buy a vehicle, you get rid of the one you have. So there are a lot of transactions, and so there's a need for more space to be able to accommodate the public, and so that we could improve our services better. So we expect that once the building is complete and we begin to use it, that we would have improved services, more space, more comfortable environment, so that persons could feel comfortable doing business.
And as you mentioned in terms of improvements and the use of technology, of course, there's also a new process where the vehicle inspection and insurance process has basically gone online.
Right, yes. We try to reduce the use of paper, so all that would improve the efficiency of our services because we are less reliant on paper. The inspection, we have digitized the inspection process, so rather than the vehicle inspectors filling out a paper form and give you that form at the end of the examination, they would complete a digital form using a device, either a phone or a tablet. They would complete the form on the device, and once they submit the form, that report will go directly to the traffic department and the Inland Revenue. So all the customer has to do is go to Inland Revenue and give them their vehicle number, and they will see the information. Similarly, with the insurance, when you go to the insurance to renew your policy, the insurance would enter the data in our system. So when you go to Inland Revenue, they would see the data. Or if you go online to license your vehicle online, the data would be there. The inspection data and the insurance data. So all you need to do is to pay the license fee, and your vehicle is licensed.
Okay. Right, so we're going to take our final break, and we'll come back and have a discussion about the community initiative, the community policing aspects of course, as mentioned, crime is everybody's business, and at that time we will also welcome persons to give their calls. I'll be mentioning the numbers a bit later when we come back. So we'll take our final break. We'll be right back with more In Focus. Welcome back to In Focus, and we invite you, members of the public, to join the conversation. You can do so by calling in at 465-2666 or 662-8674, and of course there's an overseas number 1-239-645-4500. And we continue our conversations in the meantime with members of the High Command, and while we await any callers, if there are any. It's the first time, of course, that we are doing it for this program. Now, talk to us a bit about the Community Policing Initiative, Commissioner. Of course, it's a key pillar in the policing strategic plan, that the 6-point plan that you developed and would notify the public. 7-point, excuse me.
Yes.
What efforts are being made to strengthen trust between the police and the community?
Okay, we are doing a lot. Persons are only going to speak with you if they have a relationship with you. And that is important in our community policing initiatives, by going out in our communities and interacting with members of our community. I believe that our community have a role to play in crime fighting if they are able to make a contribution in the way the police should police their communities. We are doing it at different levels. We are doing it in the primary level with the MAGIC program. the mentoring, advising, guiding, and instructing children in the primary schools. Now we are presently going back into the high school with the TAPS programs, Teen and Police Service. Presently we are doing a training at the police training school with regard to the TAPS program. Because one of the things that we have realized is that when we finished the MAGIC program, there was a break. There was no follow-up in the secondary school, and that is where the TAPS program comes in. We cannot allow personally, having put so many work into the developing the young children at the primary level with regards to positive role model, and then when they go to high school, they are left alone.
Because really and truly, that is where most of the peer pressure comes in to do something that, may lead you down the path of antisocial activity.
Mm-hmm. So that is one of our main focus for this 2025, because this is where you have gang enrollment and things of that. And if we are going to have a holistic approach when it comes to crime and violence, we have to look at all fronts. We have to stamp it out. The teenagers go through a different phase in their life in the teenage adolescence, and I will believe that it is important for us to have that engagement with them. Okay. We also work with the Elevate program. With persons who are engaged in the program, we try to see how best we could facilitate them as well in partnership with the Elevate program. Because it's important, that these persons should not be ostracized. Some of them may have come for short of the law, and then there's a period of re-engagement, and we try our best to support them in that regard, even though we have to police if they do wrong. We just have to apply the law. But we try to encourage persons to elevate themselves. In the prison, we also have that relationship with Commissioner of Prison, with prisoners who, how they could reintegrate back into society, or what rehabilitation programs are being offered at the prison. So we are supporting every way possible when it comes to community policing. We also assist the less fortunate in our community, elderly persons, with food hampers, and as we go out to engage. And where possible, we will normally share information with regard to assistance for these persons with the Ministry of Social Affairs. So it's important that we have that ongoing process.
Mm-hmm. All right. And talk to us a bit about, Mr. Henry, if you could as well, too, the efforts of Sergeant O'Dane, as mentioned earlier. She is the one who is leading the National Intervention Team. And, of course, we see them out and about. And persons who are looking at us live would have just seen a bit of a recap of some of the activities that they participated in last year in terms of engaging persons with persons, young children, in the police uniform, in law enforcement uniform. Yes. Talk to us about the work that that team is doing.
Well, apart from working in the schools, in sort of creating a bond between the police and the young people, because we prefer them to make a bond with the police than to make bonds with the criminal, because children are looking out to look up to someone, and we want to give them that opportunity to look up to the police, to create that bond with the police, as opposed to creating the bond with criminal elements. But in addition to working with the schools, she also works along with our security forces football team in their youth program. They have a youth football program, and she works along with that team as well to mold the children who are into that football program. So when they come to the sessions, they not only hear about football, they hear about other life skills, other soft skills that could propel them, turn them, steer them in the right direction. So she's working along with the management of the security forces football team and their youth football program. We had a summer camp gone just last August. We had over 300 children on that camp. Following that camp, Sergeant O'Dane and a few of her officers from her team, they traveled to England to look at the youth programs in England, to see what lessons could be learned from those programs that she could bring back here to introduce. So she's expanding beyond just going in the schools. She's going into the communities. At afternoon, they have sessions at the community centers in various communities with children, after school sessions in terms of assisting with homework, having other sessions that would keep the children occupied, as opposed to them straying and doing delinquent things.
Right, and that actually speaks to the international partnerships. At least a part of it that was mentioned earlier in the program as well too. All right, just about 5 minutes left. We want to talk about, as we mentioned, seeing the videos of the young children in the police uniform and in other law enforcement agencies, about the opportunities to join the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. What is the current status? Is recruitment taking place? How can one do so?
Yes, we are recruiting. We need people. Last year we circulated a flyer inviting persons to apply to be members of the force. We have some applications. We are now going through the vetting process in terms of assessing those persons who would have applied. But we are still open for application. While the deadline has passed, we are still accepting applications. We hope that we'll be able to start a training session very early in this year. So persons who are interested in joining the police force, applications are still invited, and we'll accept your application.
Just to support what the DCP has said, there are ample opportunities within the police force. You can have opportunities to further your studies after 5 years being enlisted in the organization, to have an advanced education. You have the opportunity to join the white collar crime unit or any specialized unit, forensic unit, CID, and other specialized unit. You also get the opportunity to travel around the world to build partnership, to build a network by being a member of the police force. So there are a lot of opportunities, and most importantly, you have a sure salary to come in. But at the same time, you have the opportunity to work with your community when it comes to crime and security. You play a part in the development of your nation, and that is more important than any other thing, to be a part of the safety and security mechanism within your country.
Right, and so in order to be able to apply, they can find the information online, I would imagine?
Yes.
Right, on the Facebook page of the Royal St. Christopher Nevis Police Force. All right, final question would be, and we can't leave without touching on some of the strategic measures, and there's just about 3 minutes left. I apologize for the lack of time. But in terms of moving forward in 2025, and we would have touched on it throughout the interview, but what can the public expect from the Royal St. Christopher Nevis Police Force?
Well, the public could expect the police to be more forceful in the enforcement of our laws, because it is important to have that, to send that strong message to persons out there, because in order to be safe, we have to be firm, but we have to be professional. We cannot abuse persons. We have to have people show persons the respect that they deserve when enforcing the various laws and regulations. We will want the support of the public in crime fighting. Unity is important. We have to unite our forces to combat crime and violence. The persons who are committing crime are just in a minority. We are in the majority, but we have to work together. We have to make bold decisions if we are to make St. Kitts and Nevis a safe place for one and all to survive.
And just to give the Commissioner his support as operations head for District A or Division A, when he's talk about forceful, we are going to be doing more street activities, more proactive. I mean, we work for 2024 and you see the results. So we could only get better. We are going to be having more vehicle checkpoints. We are going to be using our intelligence to lead our operations. We are going to do more community policing, more engagement, because the more we engage our people, the more we understand their needs and the better that we become at policing our communities. So those are some of the pillars that we are really going to drive forward. And I promise you, we're going to see better results.
And more forceful doesn't mean brutal.
Brutal, that's correct, yeah.
Forceful mean we'll be more firm, we'll be more aggressive, we'll be more assertive, but we would still respect people's rights, and we would be respectful of persons and accord them all the rights that the law affords them.
Okay, Commissioner, I'll give you the final word now in terms of the High Command and the way it's functioning, and in terms of interacting with the public. I'm sure that there's an open policy that there's, of course, an area where persons can come in and file complaints on police officers who may have run a bit excessive, as we speak about, in terms of brutality. But also there's the opportunities to give ideas, to exchange and talk to the High Command, because we all live in the same community. Yes. And as you mentioned, crime is important. So I'll give you the final opportunity to talk a bit about the public being able to communicate openly with the High Command, with other members of the police force to build that trust?
Yes, thank you for that question. We have the complaints department, which is an independent unit within the organization that deals with any complaint of unprofessional behavior by police officers. When this happens, I want the support of the public. These matters, as the case may be, could be tried internally if it reaches our disciplinary code, and if it's a criminal offense, could be charged criminally in that regard. So we are transparent with our activities within the organization. We just, you can reach out to the media commissioner or any member of the High Command or any police officer you feel comfortable with. It's important for us to have that relationship, that openness with regard to our public. As I've said earlier, 90% of the times when crimes are committed, the police are absent. And we have to work in partnership with the community to achieve our goal of peace and security for one and all. Thank you.
Commissioner of Police James Sutton, Assistant Commissioner of Police Cromwell Henry, and Deputy Commissioner of Police Cromwell Henry, Assistant Commissioner of Police Travis Rogers. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being on today's edition of InFocus, and certainly we'd like to have you back. And of course, there are other members of the High Command as well too. Everyone couldn't be featured on the set, and we'd like to hear from you a bit later on as you continue that engagement with the community, with the press, to ensure that the public remains informed and up to date in terms of the activities of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force.
Thank you.
Thank you once again. And we'd like to thank you, viewers and listeners, for being with us for this edition of InFocus. We trust that you will join us next week at the same place for the next edition. For now, I'm Ian Richards, wishing you all the best. Remember, it's InFocus, your government, your business.
Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.